Before there were influencers, before there were tech startups, before anyone talked about breaking barriers, there were women quietly doing exactly that. The Harvey Girls brought fine dining to the wild western railroads and helped civilize an entire frontier. Ruby Foster served on the front lines of World War II, representing courage in its purest form. And the women of the Apollo program? They literally wove the software by hand that helped send astronauts to the moon. Different eras, different battlefields, same unstoppable force. March is Women's History Month, and to celebrate, we are telling their stories. What do the Old West, trains, and fine dining have in common? Author Stephen Fried will tell you it's Fred Harvey and the Harvey Girls.
The Harvey Company in its heyday was the largest hospitality business in the world.
Fried wrote Harvey's biography, Appetite for America. He described the transplanted Englishman as Ray Kroc before McDonald's and J.W. Marriott before Marriott Hotels.
And then he got out of the business for a number of years. And then in his early 40s decided to get back into it because he traveled the railroads a lot.
What Fred Harvey found as he traveled out west during the glory days of train travel was that the food was truly terrible.
You know, keep in mind, there weren't union stations then. Railroads had their own tracks, their own stations.
Harvey believed that clean, well-organized restaurants with good food and efficient service could lure travelers. The owners of Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Rail agreed, and the first chain of Harvey restaurants were built with some 60 locations throughout what was then considered cowboy country.
And so they started very small, just in Kansas. They expanded into Colorado, into New Mexico, into Arizona, and then all the way across to the Pacific.
But the men hired to serve along the railway didn't meet Harvey's high standards. His next innovative idea was recruiting educated young women who came to be known as Harvey Girls.
You had to be a little special. You couldn't just be run-of-the-mill.
Mary Spiller was just 17 years old in 1944, the youngest to be hired as a Harvey Girl along with her older sister. It was wartime, and the local station was teeming with troops.
We would be waiting on some soldiers, and we're giggling and going on, and Mr. Parker would walk by and he'd stamp this thing, get going, you know.
Not everyone could become a Harvey Girl. It was something of a status symbol. They had to be single between the ages of 17 and 30, be able to travel and sign a 6-month contract. They also went through some rigorous training.
They were very strict about what you did, the way you did it, and everything.
Fred Harvey may have built the restaurants, but the Harvey Girls built the reputation. From the 1880s through the 1940s, over 100,000 single women in America had the same experience. They raised the standard for service, helped shape communities along the rail lines, and proved that professionalism and poise could thrive anywhere, even in cowboy country. Ruby Foster is a part of history. She served our country during World War II. Ruby Foster was a cadet nurse in the United States Cadet Nurse Corps.
She's 94. She will be 95 in September. The Cadet Nurse Program was a program at the very end of World War II, 1943 to 48, and it was to help with the country's lack of nurses. So many of the nurses were helping with the war efforts that the country's healthcare system nationally was close to collapsing. So President Roosevelt signed in the Bolton Act, which provided for them to recruit 125,000 single 17 to 35-year-old young women and put them through accelerated nursing programs.
The cadet nurses became heroes on the home front.
They were charge nurses in hospitals, and they were doing things that many 17 and 18-year-olds could not do today. So it's really impressive.
There was no way I was going to get any advanced education outside of high school. My dad did not have that kind of money. And when I saw this poster, join the Cadet Nurse Corps, I said, hey, that's for me. Yes, and I did. I was in the last class.
Ruby joined when she was just 16 years old.
Government paid us $10 a month the first year, $15 the second year, and I'm thinking $30 third year. 3 years. This was a 3-year program.
They are the only uniformed Corps members from World War II not recognized as veterans.
When they signed up for the duration of the war, having no idea how long their service would be to the country. It's kind of sad, and I just wish we could figure out a way to make that happen.
Do you consider yourself a veteran?
No, we're not, but we should be.
And a couple of times it's made it through the House or the Senate and it gets buried in another bill, and it just never has happened.
But she was honored like a veteran, thanks to the local honor flight.
It wasn't very long before I got a call from the gentleman, and he said they had looked up the cadet nurse. They weren't familiar with it either, and they'd done their research, and that they would be happy to take Ruby, and she would be their first cadet nurse to get to go.
Oh, it was good. It was nice. I really enjoyed seeing those monuments, and oh, it's wonderful.
And there's one piece of advice she imparts on all of the future nurses she meets.
Be good nurses, or get out.
It may seem strange to think about today, but much of the equipment that sent astronauts to the moon during the Apollo program had to be built by hand. Long before astronauts like Neil Armstrong ever set foot on the lunar surface, women were sitting at looms in Waltham, Massachusetts, doing something just as extraordinary, hand-weaving the very computer programs that would guide those missions to the moon and safely home again.
The most amazing example of this sort of high-tech equipment that was made by hand is, in fact, the computer. Each of the spacecraft had a computer on board, the command module and the lunar module, and the computers were identical, but they were programmed differently because the command module flew to the moon and back, and the lunar module flew from orbit in the moon down to the moon and back. So they needed to be programmed differently. Those computers were the smallest, fastest, most advanced computers that had ever been created at that moment. But we didn't actually have the technology to manufacture the circuitry. And so the wiring of the computers, the programming, was woven by hand, as you say, by women who got the nickname Little Old Ladies, the LOL ladies, in a factory in Waltham, Massachusetts. They weren't old. Most of them were clearly in their 30s or 40s if you look at the pictures and watch the videos. And they were literally former textile workers. Every single 1 and 0 in the spacecraft computer was woven by a woman with a needle attached to wire, getting the wire in the right place. And you were talking about how everything had to be perfect. If a single wire of that program was done incorrectly, was misrouted, the computer would not work right. That wasn't the memory for the computer, it was the actual programs being woven by hand by women sitting at looms in a factory in Waltham, Massachusetts. And so that's sort of mind-boggling. The most advanced computer ever created, a computer for a spaceship being woven by hand by women sitting at benches in a factory in Waltham, Massachusetts. So, but that's for me, that was what was fun and completely captivating about the mission, about telling the story, is that you wouldn't believe that if it weren't true. It is kind of an amazing story.
Thanks for celebrating Women's History Month with us. For more untold history stories, don't forget to subscribe. While you're at it, check out our sister channel, Who Else Loves Art? And remember to stay curious.